What if I told you that right now in your very own bedroom there could be something silently stealing your peace, disturbing your rest, and quietly blocking the blessings heaven wants to pour into your life? No, this isn't about witchcraft, inherited negative energy, or eerie coincidences. This is about something far more ordinary, more discreet, and precisely because of that more dangerous spiritual neglect. Pope Leo XIV has spoken out with a warning few are willing to confront. Not everything in your room was placed there by God. Some things were allowed by the enemy. These words are not symbolic or poetic flourishes. They are a straightforward call to take a closer look at what surrounds us, even in the spaces we think are safe. Because the place where you rest, where your defenses are lowered, where your soul surrenders to sleep, can also become the first access point for evil, if it's not consecrated, not spiritually clean, not guarded by faith. And July 17th is not just another day. It is the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, a moment when heaven opens, graces are poured out, and prayers are received with special favor. But it's also a day when hell is stirred, when the forces of darkness try to invade wherever they find doors left open. Many of those doors are in our own homes, very often in our very own bedrooms. In this video, you'll uncover 3 items that many people keep unknowingly, items that open invisible gateways to suffering, that drain spiritual strength, and that can bring illness, confusion, or a sadness that defies explanation. You'll learn how they operate, how they disguise themselves as harmless or even sacred, and why this July 17th is the key moment to close those portals for good. Because if you don't, they'll remain feeding the darkness without you even realizing it. And take note, these objects aren't rare, they're not exotic, and they don't come marked with strange symbols. They're everyday things, items you might even cherish or consider religious, and yet they've been tainted, left open, and are no longer aligned with God. Pope Leo XIV has observed that many faithful are deceived not by what they fear, but by what they love wrongly. Stay with us until the end, because the 3rd item we'll reveal is the most deceptive, the most misleading, the one that even the most devout often fail to recognize. And it might be sitting right now just half a meter from your pillow. Are you ready to purify your room and your soul? 1. Photographs of deceased loved ones on your nightstand. Many Catholic families cherish and preserve photographs of their deceased loved ones, especially when it's a husband, wife, child, father, or mother who has passed on. It's natural to want to keep their memory alive, to feel their nearness, to speak to them silently, or to gaze upon their face before falling asleep. That's why countless people place these pictures on their nightstands close to their beds, as if their presence offers comfort and companionship. Yet what may seem like a harmless act can become an unseen spiritual snare. Pope Leo XIV has stated clearly, the bedroom is not a shrine to the past, but a shelter for the living soul. Placing a photograph of the deceased beside the place where we sleep creates often unknowingly a quiet, unsanctified altar that emits an atmosphere of longing, emotional attachment, and suppressed sorrow. This emotional energy doesn't simply linger. It can open spiritual doors that we may not know how to close. In the spiritual realm, lingering attachments can become bonds that hold back both the living and the departed. The Pope has warned that on July 17th, a day when heaven draws near through the intercession of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, the thresholds of the unseen are also opened. And on that sacred date, if our bedroom isn't spiritually safeguarded, it can become a crack through which disguised shadows might slip in, cloaked in the guise of comfort. Why is it such a concern to keep these images on the nightstand? Because the bedroom, more than any other part of the house, is where the soul lowers its defenses, where the body surrenders, where the mind lets go, and becomes open to spiritual influences. A photograph of someone deceased is not just ink on paper, it's a symbolic reminder of a story that hasn't fully closed, of an emotional connection that may still be wounded or unresolved. Many exorcist priests have shared that during cases of nighttime attacks, disturbing dreams, or unexplained presences in the early hours, one common detail keeps surfacing: photos of the deceased positioned on bedside tables. These individuals report waking up with tightness in their chest, an overwhelming coldness, or the uncanny sense of being watched. Some find themselves dreaming repeatedly of their departed, unable to speak to them, only watching their sorrowful or vacant expressions. At times, the glass on the photo frame mysteriously cracks. The picture becomes cloudy, or its colors begin to fade. Marta, a 74-year-old woman from Mexico, lost her son in an accident. She placed his photograph next to her bed and spoke to him each night. But she began to hear his voice at midnight, soft whispers calling her name. She found it impossible to sleep peacefully. A priest visited her home and gently advised her to move the photo to the living room and say a prayer of release. From that moment on, the strange occurrences ceased, and Marta was finally able to grieve in peace. Pope Leo XIV teaches, "Not everything we love must remain beside us, if what we love has already returned to God." That single line captures the spiritual tension many people live with. They keep the picture out of love, but if that love is not surrendered, it can become a barrier to peace. The Pope reminds us that genuine love is not about holding on, it's about letting go. Keeping photos of deceased individuals in the bedroom risks keeping their spirits tied to this world, preventing them from fully entering into God's presence. And it traps us in memories that hinder our own healing. These images turn into invisible weights, emotional cords, and mirrors reflecting pain we're reluctant to release. So, what is the right course of action? The first step is to acknowledge the spiritual weight these objects carry. They are not ordinary decorations. They are symbols, and symbols possess power. If you currently have photographs of the deceased in your bedroom, particularly on your nightstand or close to your pillow, consider removing them without delay. The most suitable spot to place them is in a shared space, such as the living room, or a small family altar, adorned with fresh flowers, natural light, or a lit candle. This environment offers a respectful space for tribute without intruding upon the sacredness of rest. Before relocating the photo, offer a prayer of surrender. Lord, I place this loved one in your hands. Grant them eternal rest. I release them and I trust you. If seeing that image causes your heart to tighten, stirring deep sorrow or aching nostalgia, it may be time to respectfully let it go. Not because it is bad, but because it has become a burden. You may choose to burn it or hide it in a sacred place while saying a prayer of farewell, and then replace it with an image of the Virgin Mary, the Sacred Heart, or the Cross, to fill that void with divine light. Keep in mind the bedroom is not a shrine of memories, but a haven for restoration. It is not meant to be a museum of what has passed, but a sacred space where God restores our strength each night. Just as Mary watched over the child Jesus as he rested in the manger, we too must protect our sleep from anything that is not from God. Pope Leo XIV once summed this up with a phrase that deserves to be etched into our hearts. The soul that sleeps surrounded by shadows does not awaken in the light, but the soul that releases with faith rests beneath Mary's mantle. 2. Objects that carry painful or cursed memories, shackles of the soul. Some items we hold on to not because they're useful, but because they still hurt. Small, quiet things tucked away in a box, a forgotten drawer, or the depths of a closet that remains unopened. Items that have sat there for years untouched, yet still alive, because whenever we touch them, glance at them, or even remember them, something inside breaks all over again. These are not mere possessions. They are painful memories. And spiritually speaking, they are chains. Pope Leo XIV has declared unequivocally, "What remains unhealed becomes a bridge for the enemy." This warning is not metaphorical, it is direct. Everything we keep from a place of pain, betrayal, or despair becomes a crack through which darkness can creep in. Especially if these items remain in our bedroom. Especially if, as often happens, we store them right beside where we sleep, unaware that each night they too stay with us. What exactly are we referring to? Letters written during a breakup that was never truly healed. A journal filled with sorrow, depression, and faithless nights. Gifts from those who betrayed us, who abandoned us, who made us feel unworthy. Photographs from dark seasons of sickness, of farewells, of moments we wish we could erase, yet we keep them just in case. Many of these mementos no longer have any practical use. We don't need them, we don't use them, but we can't seem to part with them, because they represent a story, a moment, an emotion that still wounds. And that open wound, though we may not face it every day, still lingers. It clings to the object. It breathes in silence. And every night as we lower our guard and the soul seeks peace, that stored energy begins to stir. July 17th, the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel is a sacred time. But as Pope Leo XIV has warned, it is also a time of spiritual turbulence. Yes, blessings do descend, but the enemy is also lurking, looking for cracks, for rooms left slightly open, and no crack is more subtle than unresolved emotional attachment. When we sleep beside objects soaked in sorrow, our soul cannot fully rest. Some people feel a heaviness in the chest, unexplainable anxiety or recurring nightmares. Some dream of people from the past, painful situations or places tied to suffering. Upon waking, they can't understand why they feel sad, weak, or drained. They don't realize that on their nightstand sits a box of goodbye letters, that in their closet hangs a dress that belonged to someone now gone, that on their desk lies a bracelet given before a betrayal. Each of those items gives off a kind of vibration, like a silent melody that only the soul can truly hear. But how can you tell if you're still tied to a memory through a physical object? If touching it creates a knot in your stomach? If you can't bring yourself to get rid of it, even though you know it's no longer good for you? If just seeing it sends your thoughts back to a season of sorrow, or if every time you try to pray, your mind keeps returning to that person or that painful moment, then you're bound. Not by something external, but by an internal chain you've continued to reinforce over time. Pope Leo XIV teaches, "The soul cannot receive what is new if it clings to what made it bleed." It's a painful truth, yet one that sets you free. Many people confuse loyalty with imprisonment. They think holding on to what once hurt them is a way to honor their past. But in reality, they're blocking their own healing. God doesn't want you living trapped in what has already happened. He wants you to hand it over, to surrender it, to place it in His hands so He can turn that pain into redemption. So, what should be done with these lingering memories? The first step is to recognize them. Open your drawers, your closets, those hidden boxes. Look at each item and ask yourself honestly, does this lead me to peace or to tears? If it doesn't lead you toward God, if it doesn't strengthen you, if it doesn't bring renewal, then it's not something you need to keep. Then pray. With your heart laid bare, say, "Lord, today I release this pain. I give you this story, this person, this broken part of who I am." Don't speak these words out of obligation. Say them from deep within, even if they hurt. Even if it feels like you're betraying your memories. Because you're not betraying anyone, you're setting yourself free. After that, destroy the object. If it's a letter, a journal, or anything written, burn it. If it's something valuable but no longer spiritually healthy, give it away. Or bury it as a symbol that the season it represents has ended and should now be at rest. But do this prayerfully with a spirit of forgiveness and surrender. Don't just toss it in the trash as if it were worthless. Don't hide it back in the drawer to keep yourself in bondage. And when you're done, place something new in that now empty space. A clean crucifix, a comforting image of the Virgin Mary, a Bible open to Psalm 147. The Lord heals the brokenhearted, or maybe a white candle, a fresh flower, something to mark that you are rising again in spirit. Because whatever is cleansed, whatever is purified through faith, becomes an altar of hope. Pope Leo XIV put it plainly, pain is not to be venerated but to be surrendered. The past doesn't belong locked in a drawer, but offered at the altar. Let those words lead you not as criticism, but as an invitation. God isn't judging you for what you've kept, but He is calling you to let it go. Because as long as your soul remains chained to pain, it cannot receive the blessings of the day ahead. July 17th is an open door, but you won't be able to walk through it if you're still carrying the burden of what once was. Let the act of releasing become an act of faith. Let the emptying of your room become a declaration that you want God to fill it, not with memories, but with His living presence. Because wherever space is made clean, there the Holy Spirit can dwell. And wherever a tear is offered in faith, heaven responds with peace. 3. Corrupted religious items. The most deceptive trap. Among all the things someone might keep in their room, nothing seems more harmless, more respected, or more trustworthy than religious objects. A crucifix on the wall, an image of the Virgin on the nightstand, a rosary hanging by the bed. These should, in theory, protect. These should, by nature, keep evil at bay. But Pope Leo XIV has issued a firm warning. Not every crucifix brings light. Not every image brings blessing. What is not treated with faith ceases to serve faith. These words sound the alarm one many believers still hesitate to acknowledge, because what's most dangerous isn't what is obviously evil, but what appears sacred while being corrupted. And this is the enemy's most subtle trap, to disguise himself as light. When a religious item in a room has been spiritually tainted, it no longer protects. On the contrary, it becomes a conduit, a disguised gateway, allowing darkness to enter unnoticed. Especially on July 17th, when heaven opens with great force, so too does hell, trying to cloak itself in things that appear holy. And often the enemy doesn't reveal himself through the grotesque, but rather through what appears to be devout. How does a religious item become spiritually contaminated? First, by its origin. Some people purchase rosaries or sacred images from esoteric fairs, or from shops where saints are displayed alongside pagan charms, or where energies are manipulated that clearly do not come from God. An item created, handled, or sold in a spiritually impure environment is no longer spiritually clean. It might look like a cross. It might bear the image of Mary. It might even seem blessed, but its spiritual essence has been compromised. Second, by the way it is used. Many people hang a rosary in their room as a decoration, a charm, or a token of automatic protection. They don't touch it, they don't pray with it, they don't treat it as a tool for prayer, but simply as a decorative or superstitious object. However, Pope Leo XIV has made it clear a sacred object does not represent God, it brings Him into the present. Without a living faith, without reverent care, such an object becomes an empty shell. It doesn't protect, it doesn't bless, it doesn't do anything. Third, by its physical condition. Some crucifixes are rusted broken or left forgotten under beds. Images of saints may be defaced, stained, or fallen to the ground and left there without reverence. Medals that haven't been blessed might be stored alongside secular jewelry wrapped in intimate garments or mixed in with worldly items. All of this weakens their spiritual power, because anything sacred must be treated with reverence. It's not about magic superstition or just having something religious around. It's about presence. It's about consecration. It's a connection between the soul and the eternal. In rooms where spiritually compromised religious items are kept, the signs may be subtle but are nonetheless real. Lack of peace, difficulty praying, emotional heaviness, an odd discomfort when looking at the object, a sense of emptiness as if nothing changes even though I have a cross hanging there. People may pray without feeling connected, experience heaviness instead of peace, or drift away from prayer without understanding why. All of this can stem from an item that appears sacred but has been desecrated through neglect, sin, forgetfulness, or impure origin. How can you know if there is such an object in your room? Ask yourself these 4 questions. Do I know where this item came from? Has it been blessed by a Catholic priest? Do I use it for prayer, or is it just hanging there? Is it clean whole and placed in a dignified spot? If the answer to even one of these is no, then the item requires immediate attention. Pope Leo XIV emphasizes, faith does not coexist with indifference. Whatever is not consecrated becomes exposed. It's not enough to merely own a crucifix. You must treat it as what it truly stands for: Christ's triumph over death. It's not enough to have an image of the Virgin. You need to look at her with love, with reverence, with prayer. It's not enough to possess a rosary. You must hold it, pray with it, treat it like a lifeline reaching heaven. So, what should you do if you realize you own a compromised religious object? First, do not panic. This is not about fear. It's about cleansing. Remove all religious items from your room and place them on a clean table. Inspect them one by one. Consider their origins, their current condition, and how you've been using them. If you don't remember where one came from, if it was a gift from someone far from the faith, if you found it on the street or it makes you feel uneasy, set it aside. If it's damaged, dirty, or incomplete, set it aside. If possible, bring these items to a priest and ask him to bless them again. Some can be restored through faith. But if you sense they shouldn't stay with you, there are proper ways to dispose of them. Never throw them in the trash. That would be desecration. If they're made of paper, like prayer cards or novenas, you may burn them with reverence and prayer. If they are made of metal, bury them in a clean and safe place, praying something like this: Lord, if this item has brought darkness, I now remove it from my home. Forgive my neglect. Make this place a dwelling of your light. Once the space is purified carefully, select the items that should remain. Place them in elevated, bright, and clean areas, not next to perfumes, money, or profane objects. Create a modest prayer corner. Let it be a place of devotion, not decoration. Let it invite quiet reflection, not pride. Let it bring peace, not neglect. Wipe down each image with a clean cloth. If you can light a white candle and pray a Hail Mary asking the Virgin to reign over your room, make the place where you rest a silent sanctuary. Because when the soul finds rest in a clean space, it also rests under the watchful gaze of God. Pope Leo XIV concludes this reflection with a statement that jolts any form of spiritual lukewarmness. It is not enough to have something sacred at home. You must treat it as sacred. Don't be deceived into thinking that merely hanging a crucifix grants you protection. Don't turn faith into decoration. Don't let what is most pure become the most neglected, because it's in that neglect where the enemy sneaks in. It's in that abandonment where darkness takes root. And the greatest sorrow isn't when evil enters through the door, but when it takes its place beneath a cross, no one honors. That's why on this July 17th, heaven grants you a rare opportunity, not one meant to cause fear, but one to bring purification. Not a call to judgment, but an invitation to renewal. Make your sacred objects true gateways of blessing. You'll see how the atmosphere in your room shifts, how prayer flows freely, how light returns. Because where the sacred is honored, heaven becomes present. And where God dwells, nothing can stand against you. The soul is not cleansed through good intentions alone, but through deliberate concrete actions. Just as the body requires washing to remain healthy, the place we live in must also be purified, so it does not reflect our fears, attachments, or negligence. Pope Leo XIV, speaking with clarity, has said, "On July 17th, heaven bends close to earth. What is consecrated on that day is marked by light." This date, dedicated to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, is not merely a devotional celebration, it's a divine chance to shut the doors the enemy has slyly pried open. This spiritual practice is not optional for those who seek genuine protection. It has nothing to do with magic or superstition. It is about lived faith, internal obedience, and humble action. And like every step toward liberation, it begins with removal. The goal of day one in this spiritual journey is singular: to remove from your surroundings anything that contaminates the soul. No blessing can remain in a space still inhabited by remnants of the past or by objects that appear harmless but conceal darkness. On this first day, the call is to be courageous. There is no liberation without detachment, no lasting peace without letting go. Treat this July 17th as a sacred day of examination. Set aside time to be alone in silence with a heart open to God. Enter your room not as someone trying to tidy up, but as a priest entering to purify a temple. Because that's what your room is, the temple where your soul seeks rest. Before you begin, pray simply, "Lord, show me what displeases you. Give me light to see what opens doors to evil." Then go through every drawer, every shelf, every corner. Don't rush. Do it with reverence. Take the photo of a deceased loved one off the nightstand. Look at it with gratitude, but without attachment. Ask yourself if their presence there brings comfort or weight. If it weighs you down, let go. If it casts a shadow, offer it into the light. Move the image to another location or part with it through prayer. Next, gather the painful mementos, the letter you never wanted to tear up, the clothing that reminds you of betrayal, the item that holds a sad memory. Bring them all out. Lay them on a table and look at them with spiritual eyes, not with fear, but with resolve. Ask yourself, does this draw me closer to God or keep me bound to pain? If it's the latter, then you already know what must be done. Do not hesitate, because hesitation is where the enemy hides. Lastly, examine all your religious items, crucifixes, holy cards, medals, images. Are they blessed? Are they clean? Do they encourage prayer? Or are they mere decorations? Anything broken, defiled, impure, or of unknown origin must be set aside. Do not throw them in the trash. Put them aside for blessing or reverent disposal. This first day is an unreserved act of faith. Removing spiritual clutter is not a loss, it's making space for grace. Pope Leo XIV expresses it clearly. A soul that clings to what is sick leaves no room for healing. This initial step, therefore, is essential. It's not enough to wish your room to be sacred. You must clear out everything that hinders the sacred from dwelling there. Do it with intention. Do it prayerfully. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. It's better to discard a little too much than to keep something the enemy might use. Because on July 17th, God doesn't just see your intentions, He sees your obedience, and if he sees that you cleanse your space out of love, he will enter. He will make it his home, and his peace will become your rest. Once the soul has had the courage to release, the next step is to cleanse. Because removing darkness is not enough. It must be replaced with light. In the spiritual realm, that light manifests through prayer, the Word of God, and the sacred signs entrusted to us for protection. Pope Leo XIV teaches, after breaking the chains, the soul's skin must be washed. For even if the enemy has left, he may have left behind dust in the corners. This day must begin with inner readiness. It's not about performing an empty gesture, but about aligning your external actions with a pure intention. Prepare yourself mentally and spiritually. Dress modestly. Open the windows of your room. Let the air circulate. Let the light come in. Then have holy water ready. Not just any water obtained from a church consecrated by a priest. That simple liquid is a powerful spiritual weapon. Exorcists affirm that wherever holy water falls, the demon cannot endure. It is not the substance itself that holds the power, but rather the faith of the one who uses it and the authority of the church that has blessed it. With that water, walk slowly through your entire room. Don't rush. Don't treat it like spraying perfume. Do it as someone consecrating a sacred space. Start at the door, declaring, "This entrance is sealed by the blood of Christ. No spirit that is not of God may cross it." Then, using the holy water, make the sign of the cross over your bed. Sprinkle the mattress, the pillow, and the sheets. Speak these words, "May this space be a place of rest for the body and refuge for the soul." Let no dark dream dare cross this threshold. Move on to the hidden corners under the bed, inside the closet, behind the curtains. Every area that lacks physical light must receive spiritual light. Evil hides where there is shadow, and wherever purification is made with intention, it cannot remain. Then take your Bible and open it to Psalm 91. Read it aloud. Don't whisper. Don't recite it as if going through the motions. Proclaim it with strength, with conviction, with faith. Let the walls hear it. Let the angels echo it. Let the enemy tremble. For those words are both shield and sword. Pope Leo XIV refers to it as the Psalm of the Unseen, for it guards even those who are unaware they're under attack. Recite its key verses with firm belief. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. Every line affirms who you belong to. Every word becomes a wall against evil. Then light a white candle, not out of superstition, but to represent the light of Christ. As it burns, say Jesus, "You are the light that casts out all darkness." Dwell in this room. Be present in my night. Remain in my rest. Stay quiet for a while. Let the flame remind you that you are not alone. Heaven sees you. Mary, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, spreads her mantle over you, and as that flame continues to glow, let your soul recognize that the room has been reconsecrated. That which is impure has been driven out. That which is blessed has been welcomed in. Day 2 marks the moment when the home is washed anew. It is the cleansing after the battle. It is the spiritual washing that renews both the visible and the invisible. Don't let this day, July 17th, pass without doing it. A purified space becomes fertile ground for grace. And where grace is, there is rest. And where rest dwells, healing comes. And where healing flows, the enemy loses all power. Once the unclean is expelled and the environment has been sanctified through prayer and holy water, the most vital part of the ritual begins the consecration. It is not enough to empty the space of evil or even to purify it. It must be filled with the living presence of God, And that presence is not forced, it is invited. Pope Leo XIV teaches, "The soul that has been freed but not consecrated remains vulnerable, for the enemy does not fear emptiness. He fears the fullness of God." That is why today you are not merely dedicating this space as your room, but setting it apart as a small domestic sanctuary. Begin the day in silence. Open the windows as you did before. Take a deep breath and say this inward prayer, "Lord, this room belongs to you. I don't want it to be filled again with shadows, attachments, or forgetfulness. I want you to reign here." Then gather the sacred objects you've chosen to keep or renew. Be deliberate. It's not about how many, but what they mean. Place in a clean, visible spot a blessed image of the Virgin of Mount